know, man. Yo, good morning. It is a Thursday. It is time for another episode of the RoadFS CRM and Detail Bookie podcast. Dude,
The name just keeps getting longer. It's like everything, the everything podcast.
We're just trying to do everything, take over the world one little bit at a time. And dude, talking about a guy taking over his world. Dude, we have an awesome guest. A lot of you guys may know him. He's everywhere. Mr. Justin Lobato. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
Doing good. So right before we started, we were kind of reflecting. See what I did with there? Reflecting on some of the stuff you accomplished in your career. And right after your fight, I sent you a text message, and I was like, your journey back into the ring was really like what most people want to accomplish in their business, right? Set a goal, stick to the plan, meet the goal, and you get to the end, right? And then like just a minute ago, you're like, oh, the next thing. And I think that's where a lot of people fall is they get a plan. They're like, I'm going to start a business. And that's the end of the plan, right? They don't go, okay, and then after that, it's going to be this and this and this. So you started in boxing before you started in detailing, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was my passion. That was my outlet. And I spent many years fighting. And the funny thing is, it even goes further back from that because as far back as I could remember, I've always liked martial arts, fighting. I always would get in trouble at school. I'd always have to defend myself too. Growing up in South Florida, the diversities of where I grew up tended to be, I was the one being picked on and chased down. So it was being basically like picked on, bullied, and bitched up. And went to where I had to realize as I turned into a teenager, I could start fighting back. And of course, I took some karate then, that was the 80s, early 90s. And that's where I found a passion for it. But I didn't really take to it until I was about 17 years old and really took off from there. But fighting has always been my in and my out of life. It's been the positive, the negatives for everything. And it's just, I can never get away from it. And for some reason, it's my zen, my peace, my temple.
Yeah, it's interesting that you call it your peace and your temple because it's arguably a very violent situation, right? And to be able to find calm in the storm, I think that is one of the important things to learn in a business and in your personal life, because inevitably you're going to get sucker punched. You're going to get something that hits you out of left field. So as you've worked through your business over the last 11 years and you've been a brand ambassador, what have you learned along the way that helps you react to those situations in a positive way instead of letting it overwhelm you and consume you?
So, not to correct, but just to point it out on the time frame, June is actually my 17th year in business. I'm going into my 18th year.
Dude,
and that's
thank you.
That's fantastic.
I'm glad you corrected.
No, and I didn't mean that in any way other than just that. I want to point that out because that's a huge gap, just so people who are listening understand that, 17 years established. But I think the willingness to take the background of my backgrounds of issues that I've had in my life and know that I could overcome them, knowing that I can overcome business and just keep pushing. I mean, getting punched in the face and still being able to look at somebody in the eye is way worse than taking a no and being able to move forward to try to find a yes.
Right. I think it's seriously, it is an absolute, it's a thing that most people dread, right? Getting punched in the face. And I think people go two different ways. You went the way of, finding peace in that. Like I was similar in high school. I fought with a kid literally almost every single day. And at one point, the principal of the school brought us in and he goes, guys, what the hell? Every single day, what is going on? And we ended up being friends after that. And I went the other way. I went I don't like getting punched in the face, so I'm going to stop doing that. But I think with yours, we all find that peace somehow, and a lot of people find it in working out, right? Jody goes and works out, and I think a lot of people do that, and they don't realize that that is really important, especially men, right? Especially guys, fathers, business owners. We get fed all the time how tough we have to be and how we have to just, man, we got to just all the time grind, grind, grind. And one of the things that struck me about you, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you. When I first saw you and met you, I was intimidated. Right? You got these big muscles hanging out and tattoos all over, and you're super quiet, and it kind of threw me off. It was kind of like, wow, this guy's really intimidating. But then when you get to know you, you have this calm way of dealing with adverse situations. And I think that's true in business as well as your personal life, right? That everybody goes through some kind of adversity in life. And one of the things that I know you probably remember this, but you don't know how big of a deal it was. Prior to about 2016 or 17, I want to say, I had no idea of my family's background. And there was a time when I met you at MTE with Rennie, and I literally completely broke down because my father had explained to me how literally dirt poor my family was. Like, grew up in a log cabin with no bathroom, and it really affected me going forward. And I've always thought about that I needed that moment to be able to open up about that, which I had never before that. I really hadn't thought about outlets, right? I was what I just said. I was the guy that didn't have an outlet. It was always, you got to be, put your game face on and do all that stuff. And that was a turning point for me to realize that you need that. So I guess long story to get to a question is, when did you realize that boxing was really that outlet for you to get zen, I guess, if you will?
Just the feeling I have of comfort. There's just something about it that has always led me back to that. I mean, it took a break for so long because this industry sucked the life out of me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I just put so much of my personal life and to aside to be selfless to the industry for a lot of the opportunities I had put in front of me. And it was because of my background and diversities I've dealt with that led me to have life experiences, not and lessons. All the things that happened to me prior in my life were lessons to the future of what opportunities were presented to me to accomplish those, because at that point I was a lot more driven and I knew what I could do and I knew what I was capable of, regardless of the conflicts or issues that were obstacles to get to my goals. And I think what a lot of people get into business is they don't have enough conflicts or obstacles in life. So once they get to business and they finally face those, they shut down. As if they had those previous experiences, instead of taking it as a loss, don't take the L as a loss, take it as a lesson. And that way you're able to pivot that into a positive mindset versus a negative one that you dwell on and, become depressed and all these other, titles that they shoot out this day and age for people who just want to shut down. And not to take away from people who are doing that and discredit them, but a large majority by default will utilize that category as an out, throwing in the towel, versus taking it as a lesson and moving forward and figuring it out and figuring out how to overcome. And I think that's where I've overcome so many things. I mean, I did 18 months and 14 years of probation. 2 years of that 14 years was house arrest. I did that day for day. 2 years of, and at my early 20s, somebody going on house arrest for 2 years, 80% of those people violate and go back to jail or prison. I did that and still finished out with another 12 years of probation day for day. And don't get me wrong, I got into some altercations because I was training at the time, and there was obviously people who wanted to test the waters in regards to things. But thankfully, I never got into any big trouble. But knowing what I did and being able to accomplish that and knowing the things that came along the way, at that point, when I had the opportunity to get into business in 2008, I was like, oh, well, shit, nothing's going to get in my way. And I think that's what didn't realize how much opportunity, but anything that did get in my way, I found ways around it to make that opportunity successful.
Yeah, yesterday I was driving with my daughter and we were talking about a situation that someone that is close to is going through. And she said, one of the things that I've been really blessed with, Dad, is that I was in sports at a very young age. And so I had to learn how to compartmentalize my life. She goes, it was interesting because, I'd be going through school and then all of a sudden I would have to shift gears and all of a sudden I'm on the court. Right. And even then, sometimes on the court, things would be going south and I would have to compartmentalize that. She said a lot of times the reason why people struggle is because they're overwhelmed with the entirety of the scene and they can't escape. They can't learn how to compartmentalize and address this one piece. And I think that's something that all of us business owners need to learn. Because I remember when Rod and I were 3 years into our business, our third year was really, really tough. We were facing a big challenge. And I remember just being almost just consumed and overwhelmed and in a dark place on this 1 week in particular. And one morning I just was wrestling with it and I was consumed by it. And finally, I just had to go, you know what? I can't control it all. So what are the most important 3 things that I can tackle today? And let me tackle those one bite at a time. And once I started compartmentalizing, and we were able to build out of that situation and turn it into an opportunity for growth, both as business owners, but also as a business.
When you compartmentalize like that too, some people have where they find themselves having more of a personality disorder because they have to be one person in front of this situation versus another situation. Versus in that process, you learn how to be yourself, learn how to be you. And that's, I think, the most difficult thing for this day and age, because we have all this social media platforms where people could be whatever they want online versus showing up to their front door and seeing who they really are. And I feel that, just being you and the best you can be, it brings everything together. And that's where, like you would ask about the boxing, what brought that back was just, when I went on my health kick, when I realized I was 210 pounds and I was told I was pre-diabetic and all this crap, I'm like, oh, what do I do? And this was at a health and wellness center. They got me on, this is April of 23. I started my regimen of taking care of myself a lot better with the things they were giving me. I was starting to do more physical stuff. And then 24, I really took it to the next level. But that's when I decided in December to really, what can I do that would bring it to the next level? And it was like fighting again. But what I didn't realize is, like you said, everything's compartmentalized. Like my home life, the shop life, the industry life, separate from my shop life. And then there's boxing. Now there's a whole nother platform, right? Well, when I had that fight, that was, when I'm at home, I try not to talk about business because there's nothing to relate to where they don't know people, my friends don't know my customers. My customers don't know a lot about what happens in the industry, and the industry don't know much about what goes on at my shop. So there's all these different things that are moving. But with the boxing, the crazy thing that happened that hit me was everybody was on the same page. Everybody ended up watching the fight. Everybody congratulated me. Everybody had a subject and a topic that we could all relate to and talk about from all aspects of the world. I had people coming out of the woodwork that I hadn't talked to in a decade, 2 decades, congratulating me. And it was like to see that resurface and to see all my worlds come together as one. That's what made me know that why I needed to stay within boxing. It wasn't just for my soul, but it was for my mental stability, and everything that I've created in my life was able to come together because of that platform.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, well, for sure, I know that like somebody in my situation watching you in that fight, we kind of immerse ourselves in that. Regardless, I would think of whatever circle you're in, right? I mean, I'm thinking, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your industry people, you're watching that. And then kind of at the end, it was so poetic because you got so excited at the end. And I think that really was, everybody was feeling that. We were all just really excited to see that culmination and get what you wanted. And I think that's in business, I think that's what people need to do a lot more. If I can watch another business and see them succeed and get that excited about it and congratulate them on their win, as opposed to saying, well, why can't I have that? Why can't I have that? And I think everybody needs to kind of stay in their own lane, and not just like there's a lane of detailing, there's a lane of boxing, there's a lane of whatever. It's the lane of your business, right? Mm-hmm. You're not like anybody else. If we used to have all the time, we'd have people ask us, well, what's this person's price schedule, or what's this person's menu, and I think years and years ago, you shared your menu with a bunch of people. And the big thing that came out of that was, well, you can't have the same pricing. You're not in Brevard County in Florida. You're in whatever, Indianapolis, you're in England, you're in Canada. It's a different price structure. So the way that you handle it is something people can take, which is kind of like, I think, take the best parts of something and then make it your own, and don't try to copy, right? There's not ever going to be another Justin Lobato. There's not ever going to be another RoadFS. There'll be other people that detail, and there'll be other softwares, but they won't be exactly the same. And so I think people need to kind of make it their own. And you've made such an impression, I think, in the detailing industry because of your affiliation with different companies. But to me, in the detailing world, you're the same person, like you were saying, right? When you're at Buff and Shine, you're the same person as if you're in your shop doing a training. It's the same persona. You speak the same way. You're soft spoken. I remember one time at an MTE, somebody was like, I don't know how to do this and this. And I was like, just go talk to Justin over there. And they're like, well, can I? And I was like, he's standing behind
right there.
He's in a booth to meet you. Just go over there and, talk to him. So I think that's part of it, is that people have a tendency to, they want to do something, but they just want to copy it, and they don't want to actually ask you and say, hey, I'm starting a detailing business in Idaho, and I really like the progress you've had. What advice would you give me? That, I think, is probably that next level for any business owner, is when you're able to mentor somebody else, when you're able to help them and say, well, this is what I would do if I were trying to build up a business at your level. So
that's how the auto salon, part of the business plan was not just to grow and offer more services and get bigger footprint in the market, but to create a local hub for the detail community to be able to come to, buy supplies, buy water, and get information that's needed to help them grow. And we've done a really good job at that. I mean, I've always had the market share, but by being able to grow into, the storefront and communicate and create a local pit stop for all the detailers has really brought them together. And also is allowed me to still hold that bar in regards to when they need something, they know I'm here to help them grow, or to help them out of a situation, or to help them with a situation in general.
And that's, we tell that to, so Jody and I are really, really lucky. We're blessed. We know that. We don't take it for granted that we get to go to a lot of really high-end trainings. We get to train with people that, are everybody wants to go train with these guys, right? We've been in your shop. And I think the biggest thing I tell people is, you have to compartmentalize it, if you will, again, but you also have to take advantage of those opportunities that come out, and realize that you're on your own journey. You're not on the same journey as 5 people in that training. You're just not. You're on your path, they're on their path. Take the best of both worlds, and really become, as you said, you need to become that automotive advisor. That's probably the best advice I ever heard, and I pass it on as much as I can, is if you're not just a detailer, you want to be the advisor. You want somebody to come to you and go, hey, Justin, where should I go to get tires, right? You don't sell tires, but you want to be that consultant for everything automotive, so that they come to you to ask you those questions. And I think people don't realize how important that is, to be that trusted by your clients.
And if you don't have the exact answer, you have a resource for the answer. And that's the net power of the networking aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that kind of struck me on something that you said a few minutes ago is that culminating moment where you're in the ring and you win the belt, And everybody from every aspect of your life, business, family, friends, people that you hadn't talked to for years, they're coming out of the woodwork, right? And that really struck me because it reminded me that people are watching you. They're watching how you move. They're watching what changes you're doing in your life. They're looking for somebody to model. And this last week we were at the Peterson Auto Museum, and Bobby from Cypress College, he said something that really hit me. He said, a lot of us, all we know how to do is duplicate, right? We try to imitate rather than duplicate and then modify. And I think a lot of guys get so focused on where you are or somebody else that they respect that they're trying to duplicate to the point that they're trying to clone themselves
Yeah.
into you instead of going, all right, let me model what he's done in his life. Let me model what they've done in their life, and let me bring it together and let me put my own flair to it, my own personality, my own vision. And when you do that, you're able to build something that is sustainable. If you're
Yeah.
just imitating, you're never going to be able to get the success that you're wanting because you're not leaning into the natural gifts and vision that you have.
And the path that was taken in the past 10 years, 11 years of being in the industry, not one situation, not one opportunity did I ever actually go after or ask for. Every last one of them were presented to me or asked of me, which is crazy because out of all the opportunities, with every brand I've had to work with, it was never me approaching them. It was always, them approaching me or just naturally and organically building a relationship and conversation. And then the question of, would you like to join us, or would you like to do this, or would you like to do that? So that's one of the biggest things that we're, now when you have influencers or people of different levels, others that are coming up will look at that as, oh, I want to do that, or I can do that. And then they end up going around asking, as to where they don't realize that most of us were asked to do what we do, not we didn't go to them asking for it.
Yeah. And I think that's it's funny because Jody and I have, in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of people talk about just this podcast, right? And we are literally now the longest running detailing podcast that's out there. And people are like, how can we do that? How can we do that? And I'm like, the only reason that we're still around is because we don't talk about us. We're not sitting here. If you had a podcast where we're talking about software every week, it would have been over in 2 episodes. So I think that's what's important, is trying to share people's stories like yours to give people, what can I do? What should I do?
Inspiration.
And it's funny because years and years ago, it's always been, the auto spa, right? Well, people
Auto
started.
salon.
Well,
Salon.
people started
Salon.
copying that, calling it an auto spa and so-and-so's. And I think that as I watched you the first time we were in your shop, it was at the back end of that building, and you had those couple of bays. And then you took us into that other room, and you're like, I'd like to have this for PPF and tint, right? And then all of a sudden you got these other bays, and then there's a storefront. That, like you said, that was organic. That wasn't you starting out going, I'm going to have a full service salon, I'm going to have all this stuff, and I'm going to do this. It might have been in the back of your head, but a lot of times I think people bite off that whole thing, right? I want the whole sandwich instead of eating it a bite at a time. And I think it's too much and it's overwhelming. And then once COVID hit, you stopped seeing all the auto spas that had just popped up, right? The people that were established, like you were always there. And that's kind of the thing. They worked on sanitization, and then they move on to something else.
Yeah. The sanitizing part, one thing I got to say is I was definitely, when I say lucky, living in Florida, but living in Brevard, which is very government driven with a lot of different agencies, but living on the coast where a lot of the restaurants were able to stay open because a lot of them are outside. So I had a lot of pluses during that time that kept us afloat. And within that being the first couple of years of expanding, there was definitely some hardship, but our numbers grew, unlike other parts of the country where people kind of fell flat. And that was due to their demographics, due to their market and location. And it's sad because no matter how much money they would have had set aside, they still wouldn't have sustained because
Right.
there wouldn't have been money walking through the front door.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge lesson for everybody in business, in the sense that you need to be prepared to pivot in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have set up a specialty, if you will, and that's all they do, right? And so when we first started coming to the MTE 2008, 2009 timeframe, we noticed that people were segmented, right? If you're a wheel repair guy, you were a wheel repair guy. If you were a
Mm-hmm.
detailer, you were a detailer. Window guys are over here, PDR guys are over here. And then after that point in time, people realize I've got to expand. I've got to have stuff that's recession proof. I've got to have stuff that's, COVID proof. Not that anybody could have prepared for that, but you had to be prepared to move. And I think we've been lucky in the sense that most sole proprietors, most people have to struggle, like you said, with their personality. With Jody and I, we have a lot of stuff in the same, but in that we're both ADD. We have a lot of stuff different in the sense that Jody will jump before he looks, right? He's ready, fire, aim, right? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm very more calculated, but the combination of that, each of us don't have to struggle with that other part of our personality. We can talk to each other and go, okay, well, I want to wait. And he's like, I want to go. And I'm like, well, why don't we wait a little while? And then we'll make a decision. But there are times like I can tell people the detail bookie thing happened because of a text message. It was a freaking joke. I sent Dustin a text message and said, hey, dude, when are you going to sell me detail bookie? And he said, call me. And I turned into Jody. He's like, yeah, I'll do it to you guys. And I was like, okay, we're doing it. We're gone. And I was like, wow, I just turned into Jody. I jumped. But I think that's because of the experience of realizing that if I hang back, I'm going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So I've had to learn that over the years that we've been in business, that sometimes you do have to take that leap. And I know you took a big leap buying that building. That was probably a big bite, right? I mean, not everybody can go buy a huge building, but I think you saw what you wanted to do, because I talked to you about it before you even had done it, that you had one and you wanted all of that building. It was a vision that you had.
And I had to go into a lease purchase because the bank at the time was like, okay, you want to expand, but we don't have enough to show on your books that it makes sense to go into this big. So I went through the whole business plan process. I did it right. I hired somebody who helped me write a business plan thoroughly. And it made me learn a lot of things about the different aspects of writing a business plan. And having that was helpful, but also then the bank said, yeah, we want 2 years and a quarter of revenue as you start this new venture and expand. And so it took me 2 years, and I'm like, all right, I mean, time to me is just time. I'll just make it happen. And when time came at 2 years and a quarter, I handed everything they needed to them. And at that point, within like 3 or 4 months, we were signed and sealed, and I owned the building and the property, which is a huge goal that I wanted, but also being able to tell that to customers. Like, they walk in and I'll utilize that, and I'll be like, hey, by the way, things are a little different here. I've been here 17 years and I own the building and property. I'm not going nowhere. So the other guy you might go to, his lease might be up. He might get kicked out. You may not have somebody to go to next year.
The concept of time, I think, really trips a lot of business owners up. It trips us up in our personal life, right? Because we have this expectation. And I love that you said, I can do the time. I remember years ago when my brother, he was 27 and he was 6 years into his trek for being a doctor. And he came to me, he's like, Jody, man, I don't know if I can do another 8, because of his specialties and stuff. And I'm like, look, I go, do you really want to be a doctor? He said, yeah, man, more than anything. I go, then pay the time, because you're either in 8 years, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be wishing you were a doctor. So embrace the process, embrace the time. And a lot of what you're doing today is preparing you for something either you can see and you're working for, or it's preparing for something that comes out at you out of left field. Like, I mean, you weren't looking to be a brand ambassador. They came to you because they saw what you had built over time. And I have a really good friend. He's like, he always tells me, invited guests are welcome best, right? So be the guest, be the person that you want to be, and those opportunities will unfold for you.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
So as you look back, I mean, dude, you truly are. I love the title of the fight, a force to be reckoned with, because you are. You have been a force to be reckoned with in your personal life, in your business life, in your brand representation life, all of these different aspects. As you look back, what are some key things that you think others could do in their lives to be a force to be reckoned with in their own life?
I would say, first and foremost, you got to think about yourself. That's where I lost myself. You know, you care about your kids, you care about your wife if you have either of those. But you got to take care of yourself in order to take care of them. You got to take care of yourself in order to take care of your business. If you lack on that, then everything else will fall wayside, and you won't get the results you want. So focusing on myself was helpful, and unfortunately that came later. But really dialing in with my wife, dialing in with my kids, and having the right mentors to put me in check to get that right. And then listening more than I speak. You got 2 ears and one mouth. So you listen twice as much as you speak, and you'll get much further in life in regards to having the right mentors. And that's the other thing, is having the right mentors that are looking out for your best interest, not their interest or not some watered down interest, but having people that have the experience that you could actually listen to their stories, and again take what you need from those stories to move forward to make your own story. And I think by doing that was my model, just going through things and just taking what I've learned from others and utilizing to my benefits, and then putting my own twist to it, and just making sure that my wife has always been super supportive. She's always had my back. I mean, we're going this month, we're going to be celebrating our 13th year being married. We've been together 17 years, but she's always had my back. She's always been my rock in regards to getting things done. And having a significant other is huge. Someone that could support you, and that's super helpful. And just being there and being accountable for it, and then owning your wrongs and figuring out how to make them right.
Yep.
When things go crazy, go haywire, instead of getting in your feelings, just figuring out what a solution is to the problem before you just add more problem to it.
Yeah.
And I think looking at things from perspective, not just one way, but looking at perspective and actually accepting the different perspectives, so you could kind of like, okay, there's this perspective, that perspective. How should have this played out? What can I do to make it better? What am I going to do to make it better? And I think taking the time to really, think about things versus having a knee jerk reaction has always been super helpful. So, I mean, a lot of those things add up, that when you're younger, a lot of these guys that are in their late teens, early 20s, they're only going to get that through life experiences, and they're going to drag their knees a couple times. But again, it's going to be lessons. But taking that and running with it and just having a good circle around you is going to be the most beneficial.
Yeah, and it's funny because I use this analogy all the time as far as taking care of yourself. Is when you're on an airplane, every single time you get on a plane, you hear the same speech, and I listened to it, and I actually shared it with our team once. It was, when the mask drops in an emergency, you put the mask on yourself first so that you're fully able to take care of somebody else. And you can't neglect yourself. If you're neglecting yourself, then you're burned down, you're run out. It's like, again, it's back to being a parent, right? A lot of stuff you sacrifice for your kids. Sometimes you don't feel like it, but you're going to do it anyway. But you have to do that in business, but you have to recognize when you need to take care of yourself, when you need something, right? We've all been in that situation where, we just wanted to, I got to go, I got to get out. And luckily we've got the relationship in our company where Jody could do that. I can do that. We've both done it, where we said, you know what, today I am not feeling it. I need to get out of here. And I think that in any business, you have to have the ability to get help when you need it. When do you need help? There's some guys in Arizona that have a big successful business there, and they don't do everything. They offer services, but they don't necessarily do it, right? They outsource, so they need to get that help. That's the same thing. Jody and I talk about this, and I tease him all the time. Is we were in an event, and Jody had an opportunity to try out some PPF, and
Yeah, no. You don't
that
need
you do not ever want him touching PPF because it will destroy it. So he knows, he recognizes in that situation that he would have to outsource that. And that's okay. Sometimes you need help, right? When we purchased Detail Bookie, we did not know anything about it. We don't go research other people's software. So we had to hire people. We had to bring people in that were experts. We brought Jackie Orlando on as an expert on Detail Bookie. She'd been one of the first ones. Tommy Trenton, he's on there. You've got, we brought in some of the employees that were with the company because we were not the experts. And that's okay. That costs money, but we're not going to make it without it. And I think that that's what's important. Your shop, you don't do everything. I think that's what people think they have to do everything. I have to do it because it's my way. Well, it's a matter of mentoring and teaching your employees. This is the expectation, right? I love this analogy. It's Kirk Evans uses this all the time. In your business, if you're Burger King, people expect Burger King. When they come in and you give them McDonald's, it can be the best McDonald's ever, but that's not the expectation. So you need to find out what your Burger King is. What are your services? What do they expect? Do you go on a full interior detail? Do you do just a little more, right? Are you going to go in there and say, oh, by the way, we did this as well? That becomes an expectation. Your employees have to know that. If they don't, then they're not getting the same service. And that's what people want. I don't care what business it is, construction, gym, detailing, nails salons, I don't care. They have an expectation. And when you meet it and exceed it, they're going to come back.
So I have one last question for you that's kind of creeped up in my brain. Is your training, everybody dreams of being in the rink, but nobody likes hitting the gym, doing the stuff every single day, the grind. How did you, because that's a different mindset, right? We always dream of scoring the touchdown, winning the boxing match, scoring the winning goal, basket, whatever. But nobody talks about embracing the process of getting to that point. We celebrate, but nobody celebrates the work that it takes and the dedication. Talk about that because, dude, if I remember, you started at 210 pounds like 3 years ago, and now you're winning belts in a ring. Talk about that process because I think that's important for business as well.
It all applies to the same. You said embracing. That's a key word, but it's embracing the suck. What sucks the most is taking your weakest points. Like, for example, going to the gym. The things you hate to do the most, do them more. If you excel at your upper body, guess what? Save that for later. Do your lower body. Embrace the suck. And that's what, when I got to the point of really just being sick of myself and seeing, me and my wife go out. So we're networking, we're in our county, we're always having our weekend date nights. We're still part of the nightlife, even at our age. We just enjoy that. We like that. But the problem is going out and seeing people my age in my group of people who I graduated with, not looking so healthy, to put it lightly. Yep. And then also looking at myself in the mirror saying, I'm not too far, or I'm right in that category. Like I can't judge and cast judgment when I'm in the same place. And I'm like, I got to do better. And that's, when I saw a friend of mine, actually my business partner at the filling station, he started cutting massive amount of weight, and I asked him what he was doing, and he turned me on as a referral to the Health and Wellness Center. That's where things I knew had to start changing. And I knew I was making the income to support what I needed to do. And it's also redirecting some of that money. Like if you feel you can't afford to do certain things, cut out some of your vices, whatever those vices are.
Yep.
Overeating, drinking, whatever it may be, whatever those vices are, cut those out and redirect those funds to a better health option or better decision making. And that's what I started doing. And my wife was already on that kick. She's a trainer, a personal trainer at a place called Burn Boot Camp. So, and she just recently got this opportunity about a year and a half ago, but she's been on it since 2018. So when she goes shopping, she loads the pantry and the fridge with nothing but healthy stuff. So when you open those doors, you have nothing but healthy options. Like I had to go out of my way and DoorDash stuff if I wanted crap. You know what I mean? And we're not talking crap like,
Right.
I never did fast food. I was always against fast food, energy drinks. I mean, like overeating. Instead of getting, 8 wings, I was getting, 16 wings. And I was getting them drenched in the sauces I wanted, things like that.
Yeah.
But to my point is just making better decisions and realizing as I was on that road, now I needed to start adding some physical things. And again, I'm like, shit, I don't have time. And that's everybody who owns a business.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I hear that all the time. I don't have time. Shit, you got time. In this office that I have right here, I could show you I have a dip bar, I have a push-up plate, I have a sit-up bench. And when I'm doing consultations or in my downtime, I took advantage of having that in here to go bust down a couple sets and put it on my whiteboard what set I did. So throughout the day, I'm like, oh shit, I just went from doing 100 push-ups to now I'm at 500 push-ups a day. When they were sets of 25, now they're sets of 50 as my standard. And then I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see some transition in myself. And that, motivation and inspiration behind that of seeing the change. And then it went from that extreme to another to where like, oh, in 24, I was starting to get ripped up just by doing me with no guidance. And then I'm like, okay, with the diet, with some of the supplements and getting to it and putting the work in, I was finding time. And then when it came to training, I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Well, my boxing coach, thankfully, that I've known for a long time, he's come to my shop in the previous years to give me some mitt work. So I hit him up and asked him if he would do the same thing. So he's coming to the shop once or twice a week in that studio room where we've done previous podcasts where my old office was.
Yep.
That's not just a training center for detailing. That's a training center for boxing. I have that whole room to myself. I don't have to get bothered. I change my clothes. I go in there. So I had a Monday through Friday. And January 1st of this year, 25, it started as 2 to 3 days a week, meaning the third day being a bonus day. And then it moved to 3 to 4 days a week, being the fourth day being a bonus day. And then the last 8 weeks before my fight, I was 5 days a week, and I found time.
I love that you said I found time, because as I was listening to that, I was remembering a conversation that I had with this young father. He has 2 kids. This was about a year ago, and him and his wife were kind of having some tension and struggling, and I'm like, dude, you got to make some time for your wife. He goes, oh, dude, man, we don't have time for anything. I got work, I got kids, all this stuff. I go, let me ask you a question. I go, when you were dating your girl, you were working full time, you were going to school full time, you were doing homework, and I guarantee you, if she called you on a Tuesday night, and said, hey, babe, why don't you come over? I got an hour. Why don't you swing by and get us something, and I'll be here for you. What did you do? I was out the door. I go,
Where are my keys? Where are my keys?
Where's my keys? Right?
Yep.
Because he prioritized that relationship. Just like you have to prioritize your health, you have to prioritize your business, you have to prioritize your family. And it's all a big mess if you don't compartmentalize and you take advantage of the time that is available and make time.
Yeah.
There's balance. And I know some mornings I'd get up early and I'd come to the shop late because I needed to get my run in. My wife would leave at 7 o'clock in the morning to bring the kids to school. And I know that I've got staff here at the shop, which was fine. So I'd go on my run and show up a little late so I could get my road work in. And that would satisfy what I needed for the week for my road work, for knowing what I needed to do to help with all these other aspects of training. So there was definitely ways I found to put in there and get, even on Saturday mornings. I mean, shit, when I would travel, especially like the couple times this year I went to the ride company, I'd be out there for, traveling one day, I'd there for a whole 2 days and then leave the fourth day. That hotel, I put in some time in that gym at that hotel and was not being shy. I had my pocket where I was doing my sit-ups, my push-ups. I was on the elliptical. I was doing the weights. I was shadow boxing. I'd have my headphones on. I didn't care who was watching me. I was getting in my 2 hours. Even the day that we did TR I got done with my segment at 12. Traditionally, when I did TR I'd hang out at Ride Company all day long, network, shoot the crap with everybody. I darted out of there on an Uber to get to that gym so I could put my time in and know that I got my time in for that day so I wouldn't skip a beat for my goals.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think that's what the best analogy I have is everybody's had some kind of an emergency in their life, whether it's a major one or a minor one, and you're going to find time for that, right? If I'm sitting here right now and 10 minutes after this podcast, my wife calls me and goes, "Hey, the pipe just burst in the house," I'm going to find magically time to go home and figure it out. And I think that a lot of times, and I'm absolutely 100%, this is my personality. I have a tendency not to ask for help. I'll just do it, right? I'll just do it. I'll do it myself. You have to decide how much you're willing to do that, because eventually you give yourself out too much, right? You do run out of time because you volunteer for stuff, right? I used to work on people's cars all the time. I always had somebody's car in my shop. And finally my wife was like, you're working on everybody else's stuff so much, you don't have any opportunity to do your own stuff. So I had to slowly start deciding when that was important. Jody has something break down, I have zero problem helping Jody out, right? I've towed cars, I've driven to Arizona to help an employee steal a car back that his wife stole. But you find time to do the important things so that you can give yourself time. And I just learned that several years ago, where I have people that I can call and I can say, I make a decision. I'll call somebody and I'll get an estimate on something. Is that something I want to put in, or is that money worth my time to pay somebody to do something for me?
How important is it to you?
Yeah.
That's because I deal with that with customers. They're like, "Oh, Monday through Friday you do consultations only between 9 and 4." I would like that's the hours I work. Like, well, what do you think I'm doing? If you want this bad enough, if you had to have a dentist appointment, you'd make time for that.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Because that's important to you. So if this is important enough to you, you'll make time to come down here. Again, this is a luxury service, a luxury business. So when you find the time and the luxury to do that, get your ass down here. Other than that, then what's this conversation for? Because you're telling me all the things you can't do. Well, I guess I'll just have to refer you out then. No big deal either, because if that's the kind of customer you're going to be, I'm just going to pass you along so I don't got to deal with the headache.
Right. You don't want to deal with that kind of a customer. So Jody and I, we travel all over the world, and we're always going. We started recently in the last couple of years. We will decide more so when we want to come home versus, like you said, because we'll end up going to a training or something, and we're hanging out for 2 or 3 days after we do our part. And we started just saying, you know what? We don't need to be there for 4 days for a 2-hour segment. We're going to do our segment, and then we're going to take off, because there's only 52 weekends a year, and I only get to spend so much time with my family or with my priorities to where I want to come home. I'll take the red eye so that I can spend the next day at home doing what I want to do. And I think
I do the same thing with trainings.
Yeah. You've got to put yourself into it as one of your priorities.
All right, let's see what Chris says. Chris, my goal is to get to fighting weight as well. That's what I have in common with Justin. There you go, Chris. I want to see that.
Perfect.
Document that journey.
All I need Chris to do is knock out the competition in my market for me, and then keep me.
There you go.
So I think
hit that button and just be like, I don't know what happened to y'all's websites.
That's right.
It's fine.
That's right. I think that's actually, I think that's important, because a lot of people are on a different journey. You showed me something once when we were in Ohio, because I think a lot of people have problems with their outlet, whether it's drinking or drugs or just doing stupid shit. Well, you showed me, we were at an event, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you drinking?" And you're like, "It's cranberry juice and Sprite." And I'm like, that literally helps anybody that's got a social problem. When you're at an event and you're like, "Well, everybody else is drinking, I got to drink." You can drink something that just doesn't have to be alcoholic. And that was a huge thing for me. That helped me so much, because that was always my problem. We'd go somewhere. This guy it's his fault too. We'd go somewhere and you'd be there going, hey, I'll buy you a drink. And Jody would go, no, I won't take one, but
I
Rod
don't drink.
will.
Rod will.
And all of a sudden there'd be like 3 drinks in front of me. I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to drink.
And I've overindulged in this industry when it comes to drinking, but no one's ever seen me sideways because I've never let myself get that way. But also from having a past life and knowing, I shouldn't say past life, but having a lifestyle of nightlife and coming into the industry and seeing how people cut it up when they finally get like off house arrest. It seems like they come to the industry and have these parties like they've never been out in their life before. And I watched them get stupid and sloppy. And I'm like, the hell's wrong with you? That's another reason why I hold back. It's like, is it an image? Hell yeah, it's an image, and it's an image of respect that I want to maintain and not make an ass of myself. So for a lot of these people, they get out and it's like they've never been let out of the house before. They never had a drink before in public, and they get stupid and silly and make it. And I don't care how people think of me. And it's like, I get that. Trust me, I don't care how people think of me either. Obviously, I'm going to be the first one to fire off if I need to, but at the same time, that's not me. Like I have a certain level of respect for myself that I don't want to be seen looking sloppy in public. And I see that. And I'm like, and don't get me wrong, I drink tequila. That's the only alcohol I drink. I don't drink beer. I actually haven't had a beer in 2.5 years. There's nothing about it that was satisfying. And I don't know why I quit, but I just did. But even my choice of tequila, if I go somewhere and I decide to have a drink and they don't have tequila, guess what? I'm not drinking because it's by choice. You know what I mean? And I enjoy it, like even over the weekend with 4th of July, we went out to the Springs. Day 1, I drank. Day 2, I didn't. My wife's like, you're not drinking? I'm like, it just didn't get me where I wanted to be. And especially being on this health kick now, it's like, it's a hit or miss. But to that point though, it's like, I'm out in public. I don't need to have a good time. And I don't need something to alter that to make me have a good time. I'm going to have fun and enjoy myself without all of those substances because that's just my personality.
And I think that's a big step in maturity for everybody. And it's funny because I talk to my kids. I've got my daughters, I got 21, 22 and a half, and 35. So I will tell them, I'll say, look, give yourself a limit before you go out. And then you've got to stay true to yourself. If you say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have 2 drinks, that's it. Then you got to cut it off. At 2 drinks, you stop. And it's, there's another comment up there. That is literally you. And if you just get to 1 or none, right? So let's look at Ryan here. For some addictions and others, it's a decision. Either way, we owe it to ourselves to not let alcohol change who we are. Exactly. If you go out and you become a completely different person when you're drinking, you should probably not drink.
Well, it's managing yourself. How well can you manage yourself? Really, look at yourself in the fucking mirror and say, how well can you manage yourself? Are you going to get up today and do something about what the hell is wrong in your life? Are you going to get up and do something about your business? Are you going to do something about your health? How well is the integrity behind what you tell yourself that you do? How much are you going to follow through with it? Because if you follow through with it, that's management. You're doing a damn good job. If you don't follow through with it, then you're a lazy, sloppy bastard that needs to put themselves in check.
Yeah.
That's all there's to it. The thing. I hate to be that aggressive, but
it's not.
That's the reality of it. Some people have just this world we've gotten soft, because if this was the 90s, nobody would say shit because you got commercials on TV saying this stuff.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden we're in a world of social media where everybody gets so soft spoken and soft about shit. And it's like, no, grow up, own it, and fix it.
Right. Well, and I know that was important to you because you went from this to like this, right? And I think sometimes we need to have those kind of conversations. Sometimes we got to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, you know what? I'm not at my best, or I wasn't at my best. And what do I need to change to become the best version of myself? And focus on that. When you focus on improving yourself, all of a sudden, every aspect of your life improves. Every aspect.
But you can have fun doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah. The thing is, though, you said, lazy, sloppy, lazy bastard that needs to look at yourself and fix it. It's not that, you're a lazy, sloppy bastard, you're worthless, get out of my face. It's you need to fix it, because that's the key. I think that anybody, I don't care how low you are is in your life, you can fix it. Just stop doing the behavior that's caused that. There's so many people that have successful stories that have come from, whatever adversity they're dealing with, and they have fixed it. And that's why, one time my wife and I, I was similar. At one time I was 210 pounds and I'm 5'9". So exactly where I was at, right? I had like 4 chins. And so we were sitting there, my wife and I were complaining to each other about all the reasons why we couldn't go do anything about it, why we couldn't work out, we couldn't find time. We did this, we have 3 kids. And we were literally watching my son-in-law at a triathlon. And I saw, and they have their numbers on the back of their calf, but they also have their age. And I watched a guy go past me, and I was sitting there in my little self. He's 67 years old and he has 1 leg. And I'm like, okay, I'm totally out of excuses. There is 0 excuses that I have that I can't do something. I am just putting those excuses out there as a reason for myself that I don't have to do this. Because it's easier. We take the easy route, right? It's much easier for me not to do X, right? It's much easier for me to go find a job. It'd be way easier for Jody and I to go find a job somewhere and work for somebody else. It's way tougher to stay here and take care of 14 people and make sure that everybody's fed and taken care of and make sure that we have all the things that we have, right? Same with you. It's easier not to go do that.
That's the same idea as being open to perspective. When somebody's trying to motivate you and get you going, a lot of times, even like what I just said, people are going to listen to this webinar and listen to respond versus listening to understand. There's 2 different things. When you listen to respond, you're picking things apart and you have selective hearing syndrome. As to where if you're listening to understand, that's when you'll put into perspective and be like, in reflection and be like, oh, wait a sec. He's not just onto something, but I need to think about like, wait, I haven't done that. I haven't done this. I could do better at that. Yeah. That's the point. That's the motivational part.
Yep. And I think that, it's funny because Jody puts a lot of stuff out there about his personal life, and I don't. I'm just not that kind of guy. But I'll share something that I haven't shared with anybody. Years and years and years ago, Jody knows this, but I was a runner, and I was a semi-pro. I went to the Junior Olympics. I ran long distance races. I've got medals for being 3rd in the country for long distance races, 10 miles or more. And it affected my physical health a lot. Both of my hips are out of round. I live with pain all the time. I've broken my back. I've had both elbows torn. And so I've had to be on prescription pain medication for a lot of years. And I realized several, probably months, I'm going to say months ago this year, that's going to affect me long term. And I stopped taking them. So I haven't taken the pain medication in months and months and months. And it's helped a lot with my clarity and just being able to recall stuff. Now, do I still wake up and have pain? Absolutely. The broken parts wake up slower than the rest of the parts. But I'm no worse off. I'm in no more pain than I was before. And I've got more motivation and I've got more drive to do stuff. And I could have just accepted it and been like, well, I'm just going to be this fat, lazy guy that's got to take pain meds the rest of my life. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to take something now that's going to shorten my life at the end. I would rather deal with the pain and do something about it and get up off my ass, like you said, and look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to turn that around? And so that was the first step for me, is getting off of prescription pain meds. My doctor's not happy. I really don't care. It's not his body. So I'm going to do what I need to do.
Sanity is there.
Yeah. So that I can move forward and not worry about that other stuff, right? I started doing some detox stuff and haven't drank in a really long time, and just trying to take better care of myself. This is my vice, is coffee. And I've gone from, this is no joke, I would drink a pot of coffee a day down to about 1 or 2 cups. And just trying as much as I can to get the inside taken care of so that the rest of it can feel better. And that's hard. That's really hard for me because I have to face that all the time. I have to look in the mirror. And I think as we get older, as we're older people, we look in the mirror and we're like, well, this year I'm going to be 58 years old. And I'm not in a position where I could go do a lot of the stuff that I did. And that's what That's what pisses me off. That's what gives me motivation is I don't want to give up doing that stuff. I don't want to give up going and doing the things I do. I've got property up in the mountains. We go and do all kinds of stuff. We go hiking and everything. And I don't want to let my physical pain give into that. So I need to build up the rest of my body. So I don't, like I said, I don't usually go into a lot of personal stuff about myself.
No, but that's a journey. And then it's also creating a lifestyle that's wrapped around that journey for the wants and needs of where you want to be and where you're going to be.
Right. And
So-
one of the things is that I have a lot of respect for you as a business owner, as a detailer, as a father, all kinds of stuff. But watching your journey over the last couple of years has given me just that extra boost of saying, I can do this. I can go do something at my age to help better myself. So I thank you for that, because I think that's giving people hope, or giving them something to look at and say, I can do that too, So
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Now I'm just battling to keep my youth. I just want to keep looking like I'm in my 30s versus.
Yeah. You and me both.
At
man.
58, I'm still immature, so I made it to a 12-year-old boy, but that's it. So
I'll be 40. I'll be 43 on the 1st of August, and I'm really trying to. I know that I look way younger, and I'm grateful for that. Whatever blessings and whatever I'm doing, I'm going to just try to keep doing. But I'm enjoying that, because I definitely don't want to get to a point where my age will start showing.
Yeah,
But I know it's going to happen. I get it. But just don't say it.
Hey, you know what? But what you're doing today is going to set up how you are in 10, 15, 20 years. My mom is 82 and she still slalom skis.
Yep.
So,
damn.
And she learned, I taught her how to wake surf, kind of. I mean, she got up when she was 74, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're doing when you're younger sets the stage for what you can do when you're older, right? So invest in yourself, both emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. Lean into yourself, because when you start with you, everything else is impacted. It's like throwing a rock in a lake. It just ripples out and it affects everything, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you're also never too old to do it.
No.
Right? My dad is the opposite of what we're talking about. He smoked from the time he was 15 years old till 65. 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day. He smoked all the while we were growing up. He's a truck driver. He ate like shit. And he's now 83 years old. I went to a doctor's appointment with him, and they told him he's healthy as a horse. He just flat out stopped at age 65, stopped smoking, started riding a bike.
Changed trajectory.
Started riding a bike. He used a Wii, a freaking Nintendo Wii, and he did Wii Sports in front of a television, because he didn't. I'm not going to go to a gym. He's an old guy. He did that. He lost tons of weight. He gets out. He goes out and rides a bike. He goes kayaking. He does all kinds of stuff.
Good.
So does my mother.
Absolutely and amazing.
He started that at 65. So there's older people out there. Don't give up. You can do things. Get out and make a goal to better yourself.
Yeah. Well, dude, this has been an amazing conversation. I can't wait to share it with everybody. Because especially this last half has been very inspirational. I mean, the whole story is inspirational, but man, thank you for who you are as a man, as a husband, as an industry leader, as a business owner. We have mad respect for you. We appreciate your passion, your energy, your quiet strength. And we're just grateful to be a small part in your circle. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you don't know Justin, I'm not sure how you don't, but he's everywhere. He represents Car Candy, Buff and Shine, Jails, Auto Salon, the whole nine. And thank you so much for being our guest. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and subscribe. And we will thank you so much, Justin, and we will check the rest of you same time, same bat channel just next week.
See you later, man. Have a good one.